Hello, I just thought I'd make a video to show off this little cheap-ass FPV setup that I put together. I've been sort of looking at these parts on Banggood every now and then, thinking I might give it a try. And a little while ago, the flight test guys put up a video where they basically use some very similar things. And seeing somebody do it on that channel and seeing that it wasn't really that difficult made me finally take the plunge. So I bought some of these things. And as you may have seen from videos on YouTube and such, I spend pretty much all day watching YouTube. So, no, wait, cut. I sometimes watch videos on YouTube, and from those videos, I've seen that there are some pretty kick-ass FPV setups out there, but this is not one of them. Obviously, I'm calling it cheap-ass, and basically, when it comes to stuff like this, I kind of wanted to give it a try, but I'm not sure if it's going to be as much fun as I thought, or whether I might just completely suck at it, so it might not be fun because of that. I kind of look for ways that I can get my feet wet a little bit without spending any money at all. Well, and can't do it without spending any money, but spending as little money as possible just to give it a quick try and see how it works. So that's what this is. Nothing impressive about this at all. It's a 10 milliwatt transmitter, so it's only going about 100 meters with clear line of sight before it starts to break up. But just for a start, it's okay. And I put this all together for about $76 with everything you see here, I think. So you also need a battery. Oh, and I don't think I included this little battery connector in the $76, but that's like $1 or something. So anyway, let's just see what these pieces are. Actually, I'll just go through this list of things where I got them first. So this, all this stuff came from Banggood. This is the camera. It's a 600 TV line pinhole camera. Could have sworn this was under $10 when I got it, but prices do seem to go up and down a little bit on Banggood. So anyway, this is a very small camera, and I would recommend looking through the comments on these listings because there's quite a few comments, and I'm pretty sure one of these comments in here said that they were powering it from a 1S LiPo and everything was working great. So that's what I've tried, and everything seems to be working okay like that for me as well. Next thing is the transmitter itself, and as I mentioned, this is a 10 milliwatt one, very weak. This may actually be legal for me to use in Japan, I'm not sure. I think I read that it was somewhere, but that doesn't really bother me too much either way. This is very cheap, $8. It's a bit of a nuisance to solder stuff onto there, so I'll give you some tips on that from my failures a little bit later. You'll need one of these or something very much like it, and this is to solder directly onto the transmitter. Quite the tricky bit of soldering, actually. And unfortunately, the antennas that I got will not fit directly into there. So I actually got one of these as well, just to make sure that I could fit my antenna that I wanted to use onto it. So it's just converting a female to a male on that side. And then the two antennas that I used were these two here, $7. And the receiver was this one. In my calculation for $76 total, I'm using this price here because that's what I paid for it. And if you got that now, I guess you could get this discounted price. So it's usually $27.29. And this is seems to be working okay. I couldn't find one that was a whole lot cheaper. And then this is also the cheapest thing I could find as well. So this is a pretty small screen. It's about the size of a cell phone from a few years ago, so like a Galaxy S2 or something like that. Of course, phones are bigger than that nowadays, aren't they, usually? Even the iPhone. Anyway, so that's a pretty cheap basic screen. Does the job. And one thing that you probably would also want to get, which is not strictly necessary. I did a flight without this, the first flight, but it's pretty hard to get your bearings and figure out how far you are off the ground and such without having a wide-angle lens. And the default lens, or the first lens that comes with the camera, is very much not a wide angle lens, and it's quite tricky to fly with that. So I would recommend also getting this lens that can fit in as well. You have to do a little bit of scraping off of the glue to unscrew it, and after that though it's fairly simple. You can sort of see the glue on there but it does just screw out of there. Okay, so getting back to this stuff here, this is the camera. This is actually the second set of stuff I've got for the transmitter side. So I have the set already installed on my cheap-ass quadcopter, which I'll show you in a minute. But basically, this is the camera. Comes with some connections that we don't really need. But as you can see, it's a pretty small camera, just about the size of a thumbnail. Let's see if we can focus. Well, you saw the pics on the Banggood site anyway. But there's a little microphone on there too. And so the lines here are black and red will be ground and positive power. The yellow is for audio output, and the white is yellow is for video output, and the white is for audio output. I'm not actually using the audio output. I'm not too worried about that. So anyway, what I did was I just cut that there and threw away the rest of it. Well, not using it anyway. Now the transmitter, this is actually a 200 milliwatt one, but basically the 10 milliwatt one is almost identical apart from some labeling and obviously the function, and it's pretty hard to focus there. So what I'll do is I'll just show you this photo that I took earlier, and we can see that on the top left we have ground, antenna, ground. Now that's where you need to solder your the antenna mount thing that we saw just a minute ago, this one here. So you would solder the two outside ones to the ground, and then the middle one will be on the onto the ant. So that's this one, and this one. And this is where I had a lot of trouble soldering, because these solder pads are very, very small, and even a little bit of heat, too much, and you'll be hearing a sizzling sound, and this solder will, the pad will just sort of pull off the PCB. So I did that on a couple of these, and then eventually I had to put a little bit of wire in there extra to make this connection properly. So I'll give you a little tip about that in a second. Over on the right side we have video, audio, ground, and VCC. So that's the 4 connections that we saw from the camera. There's one ground here that you can leave unused. So that's these 4 here: video, audio, ground, and VCC. And then channel 3, 2, and 1 here, you can use those to change the channel that you're using to broadcast on within the 5.8 gigahertz band. If you leave nothing connected there, you'll get it on channel 8, which is what I've left it on at the moment. But like I say, I've only just set this up, and I've only done one flight so far, so I need to get everything set up a little bit better than what I'm using at the moment. Okay, so then there's the lens thingy, and this is probably going to be tricky to focus on as well, but this is actually a whole nother camera. No. Alright, there we go. And it comes with a nice lens cap as well. But what you can do is, I've already done it, so it screws out quite nicely now. But what I did to get the glue out was I just used my craft knife, and I put the back of it like this and just sort of pushed that way, because you've got to be very careful. The thread is just plastic, and it's a very fine, thin thread. So we focused. Wow. Okay, so put that on there and then just push that way to carefully lift it up, and if you get a good purchase underneath the glue, it'll all come up in one piece almost. So just take your time with that. And then you'll find that this piece in the front, although it doesn't really look like it at first glance, there is actually 2 pieces there, so you can see the thin edge on the the very front, that part will actually unscrew, and then you can put the wide angle lens straight in there for much more viewing pleasure while you're flying. Alright, here's the receiver. Nothing too special about that. I kind of like this one because it's got a channel display there and button, nice button. And it came with this antenna, so I just took that off and put it aside, and I'm using the cloverleaf skew planar pair just because it gives you better reception at various angles. And this is the screen. Screen came with just these three main connections. So this one's actually for power, and I just set this up with a 2.1mm power jack in there. So that's that one. And this takes 12 volts. I'm powering it from a 3S LiPo. And the yellow and the white here are the two video ins. So you can have two separate video ins coming into this, and then you can switch them from some buttons on the back here. So I'm just using the yellow to yellow at the moment. Both of them work, but I seem to find that if I put my video coming into the white one, it's very, very dark for some reason. I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe, yeah, I have no idea, but if I use it yellow to yellow, it's fine, and the brightness is good. Anyway, so let's see. Oh, this is totally unrelated. I'll just throw that in the trash, I think. But it comes with this lens when you buy that. Alright, let me shift all this stuff aside and we can have a look at this all working. So I've put it onto my cheap-ass balsa quadcopter, and there's not much to see from the top, but if we look on the bottom we can see the antenna there, and I take this middle piece off, you can see it all hiding inside. So this is the 10 milliwatt one that I have in here at the moment. And so the tip that I was going to give for soldering this thing on here is, before you start trying to solder the center connection, push this gold antenna thing right up to the metal box that's on the transmitter case, because that's ground. So you can solder your you can solder the two ground points directly onto that metal box, as I have there, and that will give you good grounding, good like physical solid connection, and then you can worry about the middle antenna connection inside. So that's how I would do it if I was doing it that way again. However, what I really should do, and what I probably will do, and I think what you're supposed to do, is mount this box onto something else. And what I'm going to do next time is use this little piece of prototype board, and you'll see if I put this on here that the holes line up. Let me just do it looking directly. There we go. You can see that the holes are 1/10 of an inch in spacing, the same as proto board. Unfortunately, they don't match quite as well horizontally, like this way, but you can sort of put it in the middle like that, and there'll be a bit of a gap between them horizontally, but vertically they line up quite nicely. So what I'll do next time is mount it onto here, and then I can it'll have a much better physical mounting, and then I can just use these screw holes to mount it onto something later on. So that would be my recommendation. If you have a little piece of proto board, that would be a better way to do it. And what else do we have here? Yeah, so I just sort of strapped it in there with the zip tie going around the antenna, what do you call it, connection. So that sticks out the back. And then at the front here, this goes through, and I just cut a little channel into the balsa and brought the camera through there, and it happens to be just perfectly able to fit into my 1.5 centimeter square balsa beam size. So it's not actually held in there by anything except for friction. I just sort of cut this hole a little bit small and poked it in there, and it seems to work pretty nicely. So when I put this on here, it just fits in there really good. So if you have a 1.5 centimeter balsa beam quad like this, you can do that. It's often set to the side there for reasons that may become apparent in one of my future videos, and you can see some markings over here roughly the same distance from the center as that. So I'll leave that to your imagination as to what might be the plan for that. Then again, if it fails miserably, I'll just pretend it never happened and you won't see any videos about that. Okay, so let's turn this stuff on. So I'm just putting the 3S LiPo into both of these, because they both use 12 volts, so this is powering them both. And hold that down to set the channel, or to turn it on rather, and then you can change the channel like this. Now, like I say, if you leave all of those connections on the back of the transmitter untouched, you'll be broadcasting on channel 8. Now nothing shows up, even though this is on and it's receiving, nothing shows up, but don't be dismayed by that, because I found that it has to actually have some signal coming in before it will even turn on. And I think it may be one of the screen types that people don't like for FPV, because if the signal gets weak it goes black. I don't really know enough about what I'm supposed to be seeing to know if this is one of the screens, but I have a feeling it's one of the screens that are actually not very good for FPV. But you'll see that when I plug it in, okay, so let me explain what's going on there. I bought you can see the red and the black wires coming out from the transmitter. Yep, even without focus you can see them. And I sort of stuck those directly onto my battery. Okay, so the battery alarm there, you can see the black wire is going into the common pin of that, and then the red is just going into the first cell pin on the battery alarm. So I'm powering this from one cell of the main battery while it flies, which means that the first cell of the battery will decrease in charge quicker than the others. So this again is not really a good long-term setup, but I just wanted to get stuck in and get started, so that's what I have this set up for. Okay, you can see it says AV2 there. Now that we have something on here, we can actually I think if I had another video coming in there I could choose AV1 or AV2, but as it is, all I can choose here is, can you see that there? Brightness, contrast, saturation, and zoom. So you probably can't see that in the video, but it says 4:3. Oops, hold on. 4:3. So you can select between 16:9 or 4:3, and you can probably tell actually which is the correct aspect ratio for the camera, and it's 4:3. So the camera is broadcasting a 4:3 signal, so that's what we should be using. Well, it doesn't really matter, but just keep in mind that if you use 16:9 you're not actually seeing things in their proper aspect ratio. So that is a coffee cup over there, so we can see, well, I can see it, but you probably can't see it, but it's doing that effect where you get infinite screens there. And you can get an idea of how the latency is between this connection. I think it's pretty good. I tried also with the Mobius as a camera, which you can do with this transmitter as well, and the Mobius had a bit of delay that wasn't so great. But this, yeah, like I say, I'm not an experienced FPV pilot by any stretch of the imagination, but I think this is pretty good. Let's see if we can maybe, is this a better test? I don't know. But yeah, I think it's great. And as far as white or brightness adjustment goes, it's pretty good like that too. It's actually much better than the Mobius as far as brightness adjustment goes. So this little area behind or under my computer screen here is quite dark. So when I point the camera there and switch up to the screen, you can see it takes sort of about 1/3 of a second or so to adjust when it's coming from a dark into a light area. When it's going into a dark area, it's really quick. And if I just point this at the ceiling light, we'll see okay, so there's my dark area, ceiling light. So it's almost, seems to take almost no time at all when it's going into a dark area, and probably half a second or so now to go to the ceiling light. But I'm pretty happy with that, really, for a $10 camera. Oh, so of course this is just with the normal lens that it comes with, so there's no wide angle lens on there just yet. So what I'll do to give a comparison of this screen's a bit hard to capture in the video, and it's actually nighttime at the moment, and the best way to do this is to look at a scene where you have some distance, so you can get a good idea of how much more view you're getting from the wide angle lens. So I'll when it gets light, I'll do that tomorrow morning, and then I'll just put in some video that I took from the Mobius camera that I had on here during my first ever FPV flight. And it's pretty boring. If you're used to watching all the cool things that the pros do in FPV videos, it's going to be a pretty boring video, but I'll just put it in anyway, and you can see, well, you can see some video, I guess. So anyway, that's going to do it for this little show and tell, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Okay, for this next part, the video quality is going to be pretty bad, and that's because the way I recorded it is just by pointing my webcam at the FPV screen. So it looks quite a bit better than this in person. And unfortunately, the second scene where I did the wide angle lens, the sun was just coming up, so it's a little bit brighter overall. So it's tending to make the darker parts darker in the wide angle lens, but I don't think it will do that quite so much if there was a proper, apples to apples comparison as far as overall brightness goes. Anyway, here's the two scenes.